Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Roadmap. I'm your host Rach, and today I'm joined by Katy Flynn, who is a product lead here at Autotrader, Demi who works in the content UX team, and Thomas Inman, who is a tech lead. Welcome.
Hello.
Thanks.
Hello.
And today we're going to be chatting about great product discovery, what great looks like, and the journey that you've all been on with regards to a product that we work on here at Autotrader called Deal Builder, which we'll delve into a little bit more soon. Before we get started, it'd be really good if we could get a bit of an intro to your roles here at Autotrader, what you do, what you kind of look after. So yeah, Kate, we'll start with you.
Yeah, hi everybody, I'm Katy Flynn. I've been at Autotrader for scarily nearly 12 years now, so I'm one of our principal product leads here. My main focus at the moment is looking after the consumer and retailer journey for our Deal Builder products. That is kind of at the forefront of our digital retailing plans.
I'm Thomas Inman. I'm one of our tech leads. Been at Autotrader for about coming up for 9 years now. I think up to this point, like a lot of my focus has been on like our retailer products. But when Deal Builder came around, I got involved in that. So I help look after our engineering teams that are involved with Deal Builder and sort of shape the way we work in that area and look at our architecture as well.
Cool. And I am Demi Daniels. I'm a senior content designer, as you mentioned. I've been here for about 3 years, basically brought on to work specifically on Deal Builder from the beginning. So I work really closely with product designers and user researchers to kind of design how we want to shape the content and the journeys that we're giving for Deal Builder.
Brilliant. So we've just said the word Deal Builder quite a lot. So yeah, what is Deal Builder?
Katy?
Do you want me to get that one?
Yeah.
I've lived and breathed it for many years. So Deal Builder is a concept that we talk about in Autotrader, which is kind of what we call digital retailing. So you might hear us refer to that. It's effectively a tool that allows a consumer to do more of the buying process online. So that's if they've got a part exchange, they want to understand what their finance options, they can reserve the car. So it's a bit, you might want to think of it like an enhanced lead that we would send to a retailer. So a retailer would be the car dealer or the car retailer who's selling that car. Our idea is that, the consumer can do more of that online in a very transparent environment in their own time. They don't have to do it in one go. They can do it over multiple sessions. And that goes as what we're calling a bit of an enhanced lead to a retailer. So we're delivering retailers with more qualified leads that convert much higher. That is kind of in principle the concept of what it is.
Brilliant. And how did this idea of digital retailing come about? Because obviously this has been a journey that I think has been ongoing for many, many years. It started from a really small idea and it's just grown into something that is thousands of adverts and a really nuanced experience for a consumer where, you know, that concept of you can do more online if you want to. How did that come about? How did this idea start?
It's an interesting one. It's actually, it feels kind of quite new to people, but actually it's probably been something that's been being kind of built in stepping stones over many, many years. So I think the research for many years has always indicated that consumers do want to do more. This kind of old school concept of having to go to a car dealer, you sit down, someone types away on a screen, turns that screen around when it's ready for them to go, here you go, I've built your deal, this is what I'll give you for your part exchange. So the research has been there, the findings have been there, the consumer intent has been there. We personally started it many years before we kind of created this concept of Deal Builder, even going back probably 5 or 6 years ago when we started to introduce finance calculators when we wanted to create better visibility for consumers over what their finance options. So we've had these individual products that we've built on. I think the missing piece of the jigsaw was actually consumers want to do all of these jobs in one go rather than treat them separately. So that kind of got us thinking about this kind of bringing all these jobs together, empowering a consumer to do those things in one go. So yeah, it's years in the making, but it feels like it's been relatively recent that we've joined all those bits together.
Yeah. Where did you start?
Lots of research, wasn't it? So I kind of came in at the beginning and when I say beginning, I would say you guys were going through things for a couple of months before I joined. And I came into a room like, oh, Demi, kind of on your second day in the office, just come, just listen, observe. And I walked into the room to see the wall covered in different ideas. And I'm like, what did I sign up for here? But I came in and kind of said, how do we make this make sense all together from a consumer perspective, and looking at things that they might be doing online and offline, what type of emails might they be getting. So I came in and was trying to stitch the journey together. And I mean, something as small as like, what order do people want to do things in, or what would they expect? We tried to do research. Then we moved quite quickly, to be honest. I was really surprised with how fast we were able to get, really lo-fi or low fidelity prototypes that just allow people to kind of see what it could look like and get those in front of people and start learning that way. So started with a lot of research.
What stuck out to you the most in terms of the research? Was there like a headline metric, or just something that you saw in that where you thought, we really need to act on it, or we need to do something about it?
Yeah. For me, because I was coming in so new to automotive industry, is how have we not done this? Like the people were so receptive to it, and it made sense in their minds, and the feedback we were getting was really positive. So it kind of was like, wow, like I've never felt so confident in a product that this is something that's missing from our industry.
Yeah, it actually started, I kind of talked about it loads, like it was literally a day 2 years ago, and I think in September, where there was 15 of us that got in a room, and that room after 3 months was labelled the war room, and there was literally no space left on the wall, and we'd literally drawn every corner. I think I'm 5'2", I'm really small. I think I must have stood on a stool to write in some areas of it, where we literally got in a room and thought, how do we even start this process? Who do we need involved? And we just started with the consumer journey, and then thought about who are all the people we need to involve. And it kind of evolved, but it did move really, really quickly to like initial concepts, low fidelity, really simple testing to give us the confidence. And then we just started building.
Yeah. And from like a tech point of view, it was quite exciting to see it coming together. I think like I'd been involved in things like guaranteed part exchange for a few years before Deal Builder came together, but we'd always sort of known that we had these component parts which were going to be part of something bigger. So when it started to come together, it was exciting. It was like, oh, okay, now we can take these and really sort of move forward with it.
Yeah, brilliant. So MVP, how relevant was it to actually getting this over the line?
Those famous
Why
words
did it
in
matter?
product.
Yeah,
MVP.
the buzzword of MVP.
Love it or hate it. It always gets thrown in there. Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? We debated this quite heavily. It's like, I think for us, we probably had different technical MVPs before we actually went live to consumers. But from a consumer perspective, it really was an MVP. Like, we threw the first thing out there. We had one retailer on board, and that MVP was actually just making sure it works, making sure a consumer could get through the journey, and making sure we spoke to all of our customers to make sure it actually made sense. They understood what they were doing. We then quickly brought on another handful of retailers, and we kept that as an MVP for actually quite a few months and we got some really good learnings. And even in those first few months, we then kind of said we moved to more of a beta pilot, which is what we're just moving out of now, where we've kind of got 1,000 retailers on, 40,000 stock items listed on AutoTrader, where you can reserve and build a deal on a car. And we're about to move into kind of this period of monetization, or it become a full-blown product after it's been 18 months, nearly 2 years getting on to take us to that process. But yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about like technical MVP milestones as well, Tommy.
Yeah, I think committing to doing an MVP was great for us as development teams, because we sort of knew that we wanted to get something out there to consumers, to retailers early, so we could start to learn. So we knew that as a bit of a goal, so it allowed us to be a bit more pragmatic with how we would sort of design and build the systems. We knew there would be time to learn once it was out there, so we could sort of learn on the technical side as well. We didn't have to get everything perfectly right. We knew that there would be change, so we sort of took these existing components that we had originally around finance, around part exchange, messaging, and put those together in a sort of sort of easy, quick way. And then once we were out there, we had a bit of a period where we had those like 1 to 4 retailers where we were learning. And at that point, we sort of identified the pieces which were like, okay, this is actually more challenging technically than we thought. This area is a bit more easy. We can leave that alone. And we were able to sort of then take a period of time and say, okay, we need to take part of our teams and double down on how we solve these systems for the future architecturally to make sure that we've got this stable foundation.
How are we able to kind of communicate these learnings as well? So from a business perspective, we are huge. There's loads of people that work here. There's many different teams that get involved in the products that we work on. And this kind of feels very, you said it's in beta mode. You're kind of thinking about how you might want to scale this up and initially get some data from what you're launching. How easy was that to communicate to stakeholders, to the wider business? What was that reaction that people had originally? And how did you kind of work with it?
It didn't come without its challenges, I think is fair to say. Because if we think about like the deal builder, the thing that we're building is kind of part of a bigger initiative to help retailers become more of an omnichannel retailer in the way that they're thinking about it. So I would say at one point, like almost half the business were focused on how we're going to make this work. That's from how we're going to onboard retailers, how we're going to report value to those retailers, how we're going to embed it. So it's a bit of a business change. So we got some things right, we got some things wrong. Where it wasn't feeling right, we pivoted really, really quickly. But I think getting the right people into the conversations was key to us moving forward. We set up different work streams that were connected, but also would think about the service design, how we were going to onboard retailers. So yeah, it definitely had its challenges, but I think we ended up in a good place for trying to make this work and like learning from mistakes and pivoting where we needed to.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'm really proud of with the way that we sort of built this out was we had metrics and feedback in mind right from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So we sort of instilled that into the teams. They were always thinking about, okay, these changes that we're making, these things that we're building, how are our product leads going to see this? How are our analysts going to see this? That meant that when we did have something out there, it was relatively easy to sort of see how people were using the product. And then that came through into things like dashboards or sort of ad hoc reports that yourself and analysts were able to do. And I think because we could then surface those dashboards to more people right from the get-go, you could have like a wider group of people able to see what was going on in the product.
I think that's the beauty of like self-serve data as well, because rather than people coming straight to you and just saying, okay, can you tell me the headline metric on this or how is it performing? I think the beauty of what we can access in the business is things like self-serve data, dashboards, and it kind of brings people together as well, because it's something we can all have a single source of truth and just look at on a weekly basis, and we can have discussions around that. Which I think is good, but sometimes it does create, I guess, opinions.
How you interpret the data.
I think it was really good, speaking from like a smaller comms perspective, from like the team that was like building the product and the designers who were in it, having so much feedback. So for example, developing a really close relationship with customer operations and hearing directly kind of from the customer, from the user who used the product, helped everybody understand why we were making the changes we were doing. So we did loads of testing, even when we were still in beta. We focused a lot on accessibility. We brought in people who were financially or classified themselves as financially vulnerable, and we were able to get a lot of good learnings. And if you can say like, oh, we are making this change, but this is the reason why we're making it, and kind of having that open feedback loop, everybody was just really excited, weren't they? Like I remember when we set it live with just one customer, there was just lots of hype around, and it was
I couldn't sleep. I was so excited. It's really sad.
Everybody, we had a sweepstake going.
Yeah,
like,
we
did. When are we going to get the first deal come in?
Yeah, and everybody
like refreshing.
Everybody put their name down for kind of when they thought it would happen.
I think we had about a month where we were like obsessed with who's going to type in Slack, we've got another deal.
Yeah.
We've got another deal. Yeah, it was good. It was good fun.
To be fair, that still happens today. We've got central Slack channels, and it's great even now where it's like we've got this new retailer who really wants to join the product, and people still get excited
Yeah.
over it. It's
I
really
think
nice
our
to see that.
aspirations have got bigger. I think we used to get excited by like one person doing it, and now we're like, we want 1,000, we want
Yeah.
10,000, so,
Millions.
Yeah, definitely. Our aspirations have definitely got higher.
Yeah.
I want to touch on, because I think this is something quite unique to what we do and how we can move and optimize the products that we have here at Autotrader, and that is the power of our digital retail operations teams. So Demi, you briefly touched on it. We do have a dedicated team here at Autotrader that work on projects. They're not your typical kind of customer service team. They actively go out there and speak to these consumers. How beneficial was that to the success and how you've been able to kind of pivot and optimize this product?
Incredibly, like it still is to this day. To be able to build those relationships and check in with them, and they feel comfortable coming, you know, if something's not working, for example, part of the reservation stage, they were getting a lot of queries about, and it's like, is this as clear as it could be? And based off that feedback alone, you know, we've spent a lot of time optimizing it, and that's directly coming from them. So to build those relationships I've not really seen it in any other company that I've worked for or read about it in any case studies, but having those, was it bi-weekly check-ins and the working group?
I think we took a really big stance up front about how on earth are we going to like understand what's going on in our consumer and retailers journey. So we kind of refer to it internally as quite often this concept of a 360-degree feedback loop between our consumers and our retailers that kind of have to deal with the consumers, where we've kind of got amazing data. So we really did think about that up front that Thomas talked about before. We're then using tools like Content Square to visualize what is actually going on in that data. But that only tells you one part of the picture, because you actually want to speak to those people and go, what? Why have they done that? Like, who does that? But we're so attuned and we're so like funnel vision of, we know how it should work. So what we then did was actually think about how can we speak to these people. So the customer operations team literally phoned all of these customers at various points in their journey, more from a support perspective to understand, is there something we could help with? Did anything not make sense? Where we couldn't get hold of them, we also thought outside the box in terms of how can we create surveys? How might we interrupt their journey to kind of go, is there something that you couldn't do in the process today to get feedback, specifically around things like finance, which is quite complicated to just have a conversation with someone about the phone. So like we couldn't have done it without that. And that is there today. Those people still do that job and help us do projects of where we want to learn something, and it's absolutely invaluable because it gives us a full view of what the data actually means to a consumer,
especially when it comes to like you said, abandonment. One of the things that I've been able to learn just working in more in the finance space is, you know, you'll see one metric and it's like, consumers are dropping out at this stage. Why are they doing that? And it's not because they don't like the product, they get a lot of benefit out of it, but for their onward journey, they just want something else, and they want either that connection to the retailer, or they might have a query or a question. And it's just, it always gets you thinking, okay, what do I do at this stage to move them along? Because like I said, finance, part X even, it's a lot to think about, and there's so much information. I always say it's not, buying a car is not something you do every week. Like your grocery shop, you're probably doing it every few years. And if you got finance, like the last time you got finance might have been a few years ago, maybe more than that. It could be your first time. Everything, like your websites are different these days. There's different digital services that you can use. So yeah, I think it's really valuable just that, you know, it's kind of validating. It's not a bad thing seeing this metric, but it just brings that metric to life, and it knows what it enables you to think about what you might want to do next.
So whilst we also, it's probably worth noting as well, whilst we thought about how can we understand what's going on with the consumer, we did a very similar exercise with our retailers who deal with it. So we had great feedback loops, we had working groups, we had sessions, we had information coming back that helped us join that connection with. We've spoken to the consumer, they're now going to the site, what are they doing, what are their problems, what problems are retailers having. So we have these amazing feedback loops at Autotrader that really helps us to get into the nitty gritty of where we need to focus and what we need to fix.
Yeah, it's so useful because like the metrics can tell you up to a certain point, but there's certain pieces where like we've either had some expectations and they've not quite played out, or we're just not quite sure about why someone's behaving in the way they are, and the metrics don't quite get you there, but having this relationship with the operations team, it bridges that gap.
Yeah.
So I think we've had
100%.
things around like how our retailers think about reservation fees,
Yeah.
like, and the way that they thought about it was completely different to what we were thinking, and then because we were able to bridge that gap, we could simplify that process, make it easier for everyone. So yeah, it's been great working with the operations team.
Really approachable environment as well. We did do a previous episode with Nadia and Andy, and I think that, you know, traditionally you work at companies and you've got customer experience teams, project teams, operations teams, and everybody just sits really separately. And I think the beauty of working here is, you can just go down to someone's desk, or you can go in a Slack channel, and you're encouraged to kind of get around a whiteboard or a problem, and you're encouraged to kind of collaborate and solve it together, rather than, no, this is just my job that I do, I'm going to take a really formal approach to it. Everybody sits in silos. Like, you don't get that culture here.
Yeah.
And I think it's really good. It helps us go faster in a lot of cases.
I remember when we first kicked off, Thomas, and I actually missed these, so I didn't go to them, but I know we had really good feedback where the customer operations team, I think, reached out to Nathan, who's one of our tech leads in that area, to kind of go, it'd be great to have a bit of a coffee morning, to do a bit of a meet and greet and just have a chat. And I think just like simple things where in some companies you just wouldn't get that approachable, where they go, hey, I don't really know you, I've spoken to you through Slack, but let's have a coffee and a bit of cake. And we kind of started these impromptu ways of like just learning to collaborate with each other on a more personal level. And I think that was really nice to kind of just see people just feeling really brave and really open to those kind of working relationships.
Yeah, I think like we do have this like great relationship with the operations team. Like all of our developers go on like a bit of a rota where they help sort of triage any issues which are coming up out of that team. So I think it helps sort of every developer within those teams sort of understand a bit about what pain the retailers are feeling, what pain the consumers are feeling, and how that's translating to the operations team as well. Because I mentioned like it's if something's happening again and again and again, it feels like it's not getting fixed. That can be quite frustrating. So to get our developers in there and sort of have that level of empathy, of understanding the sort of 3 different types of customers that they're serving, really, that's good for us. Like, so we've not got those silos.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. Did it all go to plan to begin with, I guess? Was it just really straightforward, or actually were there some things where maybe some of the things that you might have done previously haven't worked? How have you adapted to that? I guess one of them is that continuous stream of work where, you know, we don't just, I feel like a lot of product leads say where it's like, we're just going to launch this product and have some fast follows. I think what is really unique to how we might work is, you know, you launch a huge piece of work and a feature, but it doesn't just stop and you don't just move on to the next thing. I think something that I have spotted is that BAU stream of work where there's a backlog. But what happens where it doesn't quite go to plan, or you might have released something? How do you kind of learn and react to that?
Reservations comes to mind for me in that sense.
Yeah.
So to give a really brief overview, basically towards the end of the customer's journey, they had previously to pay a reservation, £99. That would be taken off the total cost of the car, so it wasn't like a fee per se. But we basically had them pay, and then they needed to view a summary of their order, then click complete order. That's what we found out in testing, that people wanted to have a little summary of their part exchange or their finance. But then we were seeing huge drop-off rates after people paid, because typically when you pay for something, you're done, aren't you?
Yeah.
You know, And so it was really reacting to that. And we relied on the DRO team, or the digital retail operation team, to kind of say, like, is our assumption right here, that people just don't know there's another step? As soon as we got that, it was like really fast followed to think of a solution. That's one that we've moved quickly on.
Yeah. That was literally in the first few weeks of us going live. So we learned and iterated pretty quickly on that one.
Yeah. And I guess for somebody who might not be as familiar kind of with the process, that might seem like an easy fix. Like, But actually, you need to look then at the whole journey and from like a design perspective to think like, okay, well, we've done it this way, and that's what we were communicating at the beginning of this journey. So it's the process of looking through every single page, every bit of copy, to think like, is this change that we're making communicated in the right way? So yeah.
Especially when we're all working in this product every day and you're looking at the same pages over and over again, it's very easy to feel like you understand it and you understand certain parts. But I think by having these teams available and just having that extra level of insight just really brings it to life. And yeah,
That was great.
Ooh.
I think what's also helped sort of around adapting to change is the way that we sort of set up our teams a little bit. So we've got several teams focused on digital retailing in this area, but at any one time, sort of each team has a bit of an individual focus. But we've also been able to say, okay, right, we've identified some like particularly technical area that we need to attach, or we need to have a think about some more broad concerns over the entire piece. Let's have a team focus on that for a period of time instead of saying, okay, let's focus on this new product. So being able to choose what these different teams can focus on and flex people around and bring them in and out of those teams has been good to sort of get the right skill sets as well.
You're like swarming rather than having specific squads, because I've definitely worked at companies in the past where, you know, this is it, you work on this particular feature for your career. And actually that doesn't need to be the case. You just pick the experts out and people that might be able to help you get to the solution a bit quicker. Especially when there's like 7 teams involved as well.
Yeah, I hate to use the word agile because I do think it's quite heavily overused in our industry. But I do like certainly at the start we didn't plan too far ahead, did we? We were really reactionary, and we kind of set our teams to kind of really be able to react. And I think that's really important to us, being able to kind of pivot. And even like today, we tend to not work more than 3 months. So we have a strategic vision of how we're going to get there. Those steps fluctuate probably. Sometimes it feels weekly. But I'd like to say like we tend to not work more than 3 months in advance in terms of the team's definitely going to be fixed on this, because we don't know what we know. We are still learning. We're still pivoting really quickly. And I think that's been such a great thing about having the teams just kind of set up in such an agile way that we can move really quickly when we need to.
Yeah. And just getting comfortable with the fact that things might change quite constantly. That is something I definitely, because I've been here for like a year and a half, and I think initially when I started, I was like, I've just put this roadmap together for the things that I'd want to do, and actually I learned pretty quickly that doesn't need to be the case, and actually you just need to get comfortable with the fact that you've learnt this specific thing. It's not the worst thing in the world. You adapt to it. So I think in a way it kind of builds resilience when you work in product and design and tech. Like it's actually quite nice. There's a bit of freedom in it as well. You can be a bit more creative.
We use the term it's a decision until it's not a decision quite a lot. It feels like we say that weekly sometimes, but I think you've got to be, when you are launching a product, like you've got to test, iterate, and we've definitely set ourselves up to kind of win in that space with how we've thought about how we've set up our teams.
Definitely. So in terms of lessons learned, so if there's things that you could take away from this where anyone who might be listening at home might think about a similar situation, they might be, if anyone's listening to this and you think, oh, I've got this new product coming up that I need to think about building or getting to that initial kind of MVP and success, what are the biggest lessons that you've learned from this journey that you've been on?
Do you want me to kick that off?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think you might be able to have more detail. So for me, certainly the 3 things was collaboration being key from day one. I think thinking about your feedback loops in how you're going to get the data in a good place, how you're going to get feedback has been key, and also setting up your teams to win, which I know Thomas can probably elaborate on a little bit more. But those 3 things have made us really be able to move forward with the product. So yeah, I don't know if you guys want to add some more context.
Yeah, I think that like building on that, I think mentioned before, I was really proud of what we've done with the data, and yeah, that echoes sort of what you're saying there about making sure that the stuff is measurable from the very beginning. Definitely would recommend that as a sort of a good practice for building a new product. The collaboration piece, I think one of the ones I found most important is we've got this sort of weekly meeting where we sort of take a couple of people from each of the teams and get together to talk about sort of what's going on. But the real sort of key thing is it's not just a check-in. It's not a progress report. It's not like, oh, here's what we're doing, here's what we're going to do. The real focus on it is integration points. So people coming into that room, they're looking around and they're thinking, okay, the work that my team is doing, how is that going to have an impact on the other people in this room?
Yeah.
Or the work that I want to do, what help do I need? And getting together and sort of looking around that room and just having those conversations means that we're not sort of having these gotcha moments where something is happening and it's blindsiding someone, or you get into a point where you can't achieve what you want to achieve. So I'd say that's one of the bigger ones for me.
I'd agree. They've been very useful.
Yeah. To echo what both of you just said, relationship building came to mind. Whether that's with the operations team or with the devs. I think a lot of time, in design, you have to ask the devs for their help a lot. And I think, like I said earlier, like explaining why it is we're making that change. Like I want them to understand, like, I'm valuing your time, and by making this change, it will help our users in this way. And having that type of conversation is really good. And then also just learning so fast. You talked about the feedback loop. That has been unreal for us in the design team.
I think to your point in design, I know we always joke about it that we have too many meetings here, or we're constantly talking to one another, but I think I get so much out of just coming into the office, and just because of the scale of this business, if you have a problem, or if a developer has a question about something and they just want to get the context, I don't know about you, but I forget things all the time, and sometimes you do need to kind of check in with people and be like, okay, why are we doing this again? And it's so easy to just kind of like, let's grab a huddle, let's just take 15 minutes to get around somebody's computer just to go through this. Does it make sense? We
had Demi pairing with developers, literally like a UX content designer sat with our developer, going through stuff step by step. Like, that was so nice to see, just like that confidence in each other, and the developers feeling they were actually part of this journey with us, not they're just developing something and never actually knowing what's going on with it. So
I think that's another thing as well about like the makeup of our teams. I think when we were building some of like the early pieces of digital retailing, so when we were looking at things like the part exchange piece and finance early on, we started to see this thing that had just sort of evolved with the teams that we thought we should sort of carry on and take forward. I think previously we would quite often build a product which was retailer facing or consumer facing, but these ones were definitely going to be much more end to end, and sort of we had to think of the end to end service design there, and what that sort of meant was naturally we evolved our teams to fit that as well. So we would have people who were experts on building a consumer experience, we'd have people who were experts building a retailer experience within the same team. And we thought, right, this is working for us, let's continue that through. And I think what really helped there as well, we sort of had a bit of a change in how we would think about our native apps experience as well. So again, I think like for quite a few years it would be quite difficult to get the native apps experience released at the same time as the web experience. And it was something we've definitely
months behind where we were on web, which is not great for our consumers at all.
So it was something we really doubled down on, and the apps team have like built this amazing sort of platform way of working now, where they sort of focus on, I guess, providing functions for the rest of the team, the rest of the teams around the business. What it means is that we can deliver those experiences on web and apps at the same time. So you've got this completely joined up view within a single team about, okay, delivering the right experience for the retailer, the right experience for the consumer on these two different platforms at the same time. And it's just all sort of more joined up and collaborative.
It's nice not to think about it as well. If you work in product, you're like, am I going to have this conversation with apps about how do I fit it into their roadmap? You can just kind of do it yourself. which definitely makes the job easier.
Yeah. It's same with like consumer relationship management manager. Sarah and I think it was like potentially one of the first times like our product designers and somebody who's in charge of emailing and relationship management have got together to be like, here's both of our skill set. How do we merge this for the best experience? And that's, again, created kind of new way of working, which has been really good.
Yeah.
But it's seeing that also work with our tech teams as well, in terms of that natural, you don't kind of need Thomas as a tech lead or me as a product lead to kind of initiate those natural conversations. Like Sarah will just reach out to the team that have been involved and they'll go and ask her questions, and you don't have to, it's a natural thing that has been built through kind of confidence, where people will just speak to each other naturally without having to feel like you're coordinating and making sure these conversations
like, you speak
happen.
to this person.
Yeah. I mean, you have been quite a stable team for quite a while. Like, we have had quite a consistent team that has, in all honesty, helped us to get to that point. But it is nice to see those relationships flourish. I think it's been really, really nice to see.
Yeah. Excellent. What does the future look like?
Who knows? No, I'm joking. I am totally joking on that one. So I think, like, we've touched on it before, like we have kind of our North Star thinking with where we actually want to go, which is very, very, very much focused around consumers feeling really empowered to have the confidence to do as much as they want online. They may not want to do that. They may just want to do one thing and go and do the rest of the retail. And that's fine, because that's the right thing for that consumer. So from our perspective, like, good is very much focused around enabling consumers to do that, but also about helping our retailers to get better qualified leads that help them as a business operate more efficiently. So if they're getting better leads that convert higher and more of those jobs have been done, that really helps our retailers to become more efficient with how they're handling customers and also helping those consumers much quicker than you would traditionally do from someone just walking in. So all of our kind of ambitions are very much around driving those behavioural traits that we want to do. But yeah, we have North Star. It changes pretty frequently, but that feels okay.
Yeah.
I think from a tech point of view, it's sort of more of the same, but like keep adapting. So keep this pragmatic mindset of like, whatever we want to try it out, get it out there, learn, and then take those learnings and build it into this framework that we've developed, this sort of flexible architecture that will sort of take us hopefully far into the future.
It's also okay to fail. Like, we've had some genuine things that we got wrong. We learned pretty quickly and we moved on pretty quickly, so it is okay to fail.
Yeah, for me, I think it's just continuing to like tailor these experiences to what our users are telling us they need, or not telling us, but we observe and learn that they need. From a design perspective, how can we make that happen for them? Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining me today. That is all for this week. Thank you for listening.
Thanks.
Where's the music?
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Yeah, I was waiting for the music then, and I was like, I can't hear it. It's like, you know, like Pavlov's dog or something. Like, Don't forget, you can like, rate, follow, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.